any communication systems, there are various pulse shapes that we can use to send data, and we're going to discuss the frequency content of various pulse shapes. So the first thing we'll discuss is the power spectral density, or PSD, of a data signal. So this is governed by the Fourier transform. So suppose in the time domain our signal is S of t, we take the Fourier transform and we get S of f, capital S of f. So the spectral representation of the communication signal, the power spectral density, is the module squared of this Fourier transform of the time domain signal. So a digital signal has a symbol duration, which is Ts, and the inverse of that, it gives you the baud rate, Rs. So the baud rate is 1 over the symbol duration, and this could have, it's in the per second or in the hertz. So we're going to discuss what happens when I choose a particular pulse shape for the transmission of a digital signal. Well, let's discuss two extremes of the possible pulse shapes we could consider. Let's start with square pulses. Why square pulses? Because they're easy to generate. They're not very spectrally efficient because they're time limited. Now, at the other end of the spectrum are sinc pulses. Sinc pulses, of course, are more complex to generate than a simple square pulse, but they do have excellent spectral efficiency. And they are band limited. So one is time limited, the other is band limited. So let's take a closer look. When I say it's time limited, let's look in the time domain. I have a square pulse, and of course the width of this pulse is Ts, my symbol period, or in this case it would be the same as my bit period. So time limited, simple to generate. Now sinc pulses, here is the sinc function. And we can see that it's not limited in time. In theory, it goes on for infinity. And that makes it more difficult to generate. And it occupies more of a time interval. If I have, this is for the same Ts, but now the Ts is just the central portion of the sinc pulse. So this was looking in the time domain. Now let's use that Fourier transform and look at the spectrum for these pulses. So we're leaving the time domain, we're going to the frequency domain, and the Fourier transform of a rectangle is a sinus cardinal, a sinc function. And this is the sinc function magnitude, the spectrum in the frequency domain. And we can see now why I say that it's spectrally inefficient, because there are infinite side lobes. So it's not limited to a certain frequency band. In fact, it occupies all frequencies. Of course, it falls off eventually. It's kind of a slow fall off. So that is why we say that it is spectrally inefficient. Now let's contrast that with the sinc pulse. The sinc pulse may be difficult to generate in the time domain, but it has excellent properties in the frequency domain. In fact, it occupies the minimum amount of frequency band possible for a signal. So this is the minimum bandwidth to transmit data with a symbol period of Ts. In fact, we call it the ideal pulse for this reason. So it's band limited, which could be a very interesting property for this pulses. Now let's take into some practical considerations into consideration, and this is at the transmitter, because it's the transmitter that generates the pulses. Square pulses, as I mentioned, are easy to generate. We have a Hewlett-Packard pattern generator, for instance, which will generate square pulses. Now, if I want to generate sinc pulses, actually sinc pulses were my extreme example, but raised cosine is a family of pulses which are related to the sinc pulse that are very popular. They're even more popular than the sinc pulse because they let you sort of fine-tune that spectral efficiency. It's possible to design a fixed filter. So if you tell me the symbol interval, I can design a filter that will generate the raised cosine shape that I want or the sinc function that I want. That is great, but it's not very flexible. So it's also possible to have a programmable version of a raised cosine pulse, which would allow me to pick trade-offs in the time domain and frequency domain by having different roll-off factors for my different raised cosines, or to have different simple times. So I could program that. That would be great. Our hardware, which creates programmable versions of this sinc pulse, instead of being a fixed filter, which could be an analog filter, this would be an arbitrary waveform generator, would be the test equipment, or a digital to analog converter, two names for essentially the same equipment. However, this equipment is quite expensive, and it's not available in our teaching laboratory. Therefore, we're not going to really talk about sinc pulses at all. I just wanted to mention it now, but I'm going to focus on the square pulses, and in particular on the frequency content of these square pulses. The square pulses that will be generated in the lab are being generated by this HP PRBS pseudo-random binary sequence generator. There is a data output over here and a data bar. So we have the sequence and then the logical inversion. So when a 1 comes out on the D, it's a 0 on the D bar. This is a non-return to 0 signal. So if I have a 1 followed by 1, it stays up at 1. It doesn't go back to 0. The frequency range, as we can read right here, is from 100 megabits up to 3 gigabits per second. So as I mentioned, we're going to focus our discussion on square pulses because in the laboratory, that is what we're going to be generating. Of course, they're not perfect square pulses. They'll have some rise time, fall time, etc. And we'll be discussing those effects in the frequency domain.